Welcome to Channel AMAC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested about migrating to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel? So once we all have all the updates and news, you'll be the first one getting all the insight. Now today's video, I would like to focus on the state of Western Australia, the strictest state on COVID control of the whole nation. Now we notice from March 2020, Australia has been renowned with a name called Fortress Australia by means of the Prime Minister back then actually advises all the temporary visa holders, that include international student and all the working visa holders, to leave Australia and also restrict Australians to travel in and out of Australia as well. Now obviously we have moved into 2 years downwards of the pandemic. As a nation, Prime Minister of Australia Scott Morrison had announced on the 15th of December 2021 that the border should be opened. However, the Western Australian state is resilient and resisted not to actually get that allowed. Anyway, this is either a political debate or perhaps it's a first battle before the federal election in May 2022. However, it has affected a lot of people. Not many people is actually very happy in regards to the Premier of the Western Australia and how this has been done. Anyway, let's have a look. We can't do too much in regards to the political side of this area anyhow, because we are not politicians and we are not effective enough to actually have that effect on the politician as well, or the state of Western Australia. But we do need to let everybody know how strict they are. And if you wanted to travel to Western Australia, perhaps you need to rethink about it. And I've repeatedly in this channel comment about Western Australia's migration policies, which is really lagging behind of all the other states as well. Is it a migration friendly state? Maybe not. Why don't you leave a comment right down below, and let's have a look what the Western Australia has to offer for a COVID restrictions. Okay, now you may do a little research on Google. Basically we just punch in border restriction or border control Western Australia. You should be able to land yourself in this web page. Now this web page is very interesting because it doesn't have too much pictures apart from the logo at the top here for 2 kangaroos and 1 swan in the middle and a crown at the top, and the most intriguing thing that you see is down here: jurisdiction, Australian Capital Territory, extreme risk; New South Wales, extreme risk; Northern Territory, extreme risk; Queensland, extreme risk; South Australia, extreme risk; Tasmania, extreme risk; Victoria, extreme risk. So it looks like every state and territory of Australia is actually extremely risky and not safe in compared to Western Australia. So they paint a picture to saying that Western Australia is the safest state at this point of time. I don't know. Why don't you comment right down below? And let's have a read. Let's go through this. So COVID-19 coronavirus control border information on Western Australian control border arrangement, condition and entry quarantine. Now we will go to the WA safe transition plan. Whether or not you think it's safe or not, I'm not too sure, but it does cause a lot of anger and stress on a lot of travelers and international students, working holiday makers, and perhaps a lot of people will actually make an alternative decision to go elsewhere. Okay, Western Australia's border arrangement. WA is a safe and sensible control border arrangement based on public health advice. Don't know who gave them the advice. How about the national advice? Are they listening to that one, or do they basically don't take it into account at all? The control border arrangement provides system of safe travel into WA from interstate, and that's why you see down here. Now, what about international travelers? Don't know. Okay, extreme risk. Perhaps the whole globe, the world is at extreme risk to Western Australia. Okay. Now, who have they contact 14 days prior travel? They are subject to condition including completing G2G pass, external link. Here we go. So you need to get that done. Declaration of prior entry. WA's Chief Health Officer continues closely monitor community transmissions in other jurisdictions and will advise WA government if any changes border keep Western Australia protected. Now, despite of saying that, the population in Western Australia compared to the eastern side of the state of Australia is far less. And why is it really? I'm not too sure why do they think it cannot be controlled? Okay, even the Northern Territory. Look at this, Northern Territory. How many? What's the population in Northern Territory? Okay, condition for quarantine as part of safe and sensible control. It kept on saying that, safe and sensible. So other states is not sensible. That's what they try to say. Condition of quarantine apply to travelers coming to WA. The condition will apply to traveler arriving from low risk. Now, looks like there is no low risk jurisdiction at this point in time. Now, at the time of this recording, it's the 31st of January 2022, and there is no low risk jurisdiction from how they categorize all the other states. So forget about all that there. So, and we forget about low risk jurisdiction. And we can forget about this. We also can forget about this. We can also forget about high risk jurisdiction, because at this point in time, every other state and territory is extreme risk jurisdictions. So let's have a look. Okay, so that's cut off almost 2/3 of this page's contents, interestingly. Now, extreme risk jurisdictions. So you are not permitted to enter without approval through G2G pass. Okay, exemption restriction on Commonwealth of the States special function only. So if you're a politician, that's fine, you can travel, but if you're not, you can't do anything about it. If permitted entry, you will be directed to undertake 14 days hotel quarantine at government approved quarantine facility. You must provide approval of you being double vaccinated against COVID-19. Well, I'm not too sure that will work anyway, because so many people get double vaccinated, still get infected and still die. So whether or not you still need that anymore. Anyway, you undertake the test and you must wear a mask. Anyway, okay, international travelers. Direct international arrival. You must complete 14 days hotel quarantine upon arrival in WA. And you will be subject to mandatory test following: 1 on the day of following arriving WA, on day 5 quarantine, 13 quarantine again on the 17th after you left quarantine, and day 21st after you left quarantine. Indirect international arrivals, if you travel outside Australia and another Australian state, and then looking into moving into WA, I think it's the same thing as you going through this. So I don't think you'll be able to do it unless you're an approved traveler. So approved traveler is back up there. You got to be approval by the G2G pass. Okay, so so how do you enter if you're international travel? So that means international travel can enter WA, but other people from jurisdiction in Australia, so ACT and New South Wales, Victoria, Northern Territory, Queensland, South Australia, Tasmania cannot enter. Let's have a look. Okay, so the updates of the transition, and look at this. It's very funny where WA has been separated with dotted lines. I'm not too sure how that actually meant. Okay. Based on the health advice, the WA's safe transition plan has been updated. The new hard border and approved travelers. Now that doesn't sound very good. And let's continue to read it. Okay, a new hard border will introduce under the plan allow safe, compassionate travel into WA and the return of legitimate Western Australians. So I wonder who are the illegitimate Western Australians. Now, bear in mind, by doing so, by saying this, it's actually triggering the constitutions of having I don't think it's not constitutionally right to have this kind of differentiation between the borders and the Australians, dividing Australia into Western Australians. Just don't think this is constitutional right anyway. Okay. The updated plan means that the full border opening will be delayed given the full impact of Omicron and the peak infection not yet reached. Now, what if it never reached? So they will not open anymore. Are they? Well, what about the federal government? Federal government is opening up the border. Okay, under the new hard border, approved travellers permitted enter WA testing quarantine. Returning Western Australian will strong reason connection, personal, direct, legitimate family connections, compassionate ground, so visiting funeral and all our stuff. Member family, people entering urgent medical treatment, national security, Commonwealth and state governments, all the diplomats and all that kind of people. Special consideration. I don't think that's gonna be state emergency and the health and medical people. Interstate travel. Approved interstate traveler into WA will be permitted following requirement. Traveler must be approved G2G pass. I think that's what we have just gone through in the previous page. Be triple doses vaccinated if eligible. Wow. I mean, that's over the full vaccinated definition. Provide a proven negative rapid antigen test 24 hours before departure. 14-day self-quarantine and PCR test within 48 hours. Wow, this is so strict. And if we're looking into, for example, UK, everything's open. Europe, although despite of the infection rates and numbers, the death rate is pretty low, isn't it? I think that's where the scientists and the medical people and the medical world is moving towards, but not for Western Australians. Okay, additional requirement in place: domestic road travel. Approved domestic travelers to limit travel to 1,500 kilometers from road border. How do they monitor this? I'm not too sure how they're going to monitor this. Entry at the Kununurra border only permitted to transport freight logistic border community resident and the Aboriginal community. Oh, okay, good. Now, international travel, that's where we predominantly more interested about. International travel into WA will be permitted following requirement, meet the Commonwealth requirement to enter. Now, obviously, so you get fully vaccinated, not triple vaccinated. Travel must approve G2G. Again, that's another thing. I don't think anyone could actually pass that. Under 14-day mandatory quarantine, 7 days in hotel and 7 days self-quarantine. PCR test day one, so whatever it is, so recent. Subject mandatory use G2G now and in-person check the WA police. International travel indirect into WA via the state territory will be subject to same entry quarantine requirement domestic traveller. So that means if you heading into South Australia and trying to drive into WA, you need to meet this requirement, which is anyway, forget about it. Current entry arrangement remain unchanged. So that means what had been said, the border should be open fully on the 5th of February 2022, will now be postponed, and currently is still subject to all this very hard border control of Western Australia. So what is that gonna do for all the international students? Now, if they delay 5th of Feb, meaning and plus the 14 days of quarantine periods, that's already meeting the commencement date of all the universities in Australia, or perhaps only in Western Australia because all the other states are open. So what does that mean? That means your first semester of 2022, if you're not in Western Australia yet, you will not be able to commence it. But you probably will take it as an online tests, online courses. Anyway, that's for the update of the hard border control of Western Australia. What do you think about it? Why don't you leave a comment right down below, and I'll see you next video. Goodbye.